I was being, dragged along by all of these different emotions, and I didn't understand why until I started to learn about trauma and its impact, how it lives deeply in our cell memory outside of our conscious awareness, right? Like, that's the thing about it. It hides. The thing about like trauma, right? It really depends how we tell the story. For a long time, the story I had told myself was that for me, I was the victim, people were mean to me, but through like retelling the story through a different lens, so that instead of like being the victim, I become the victim. The loneliness, and like people are lonely, we're so connected, right?
Yeah.
But yet they're lonelier than they've ever been. I really enjoyed like seeing my clients transform and setting them off on their journey to like where they feel empowered, they feel whole again.
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
In my experience, none of us can exist through this world without some serious trauma, or at least like a struggle or a failure, like something that we're like, we regret, we feel bad about, like it feels traumatic to us. Is my observation normal?
Your observation is like so on, and really, when I first became a coach, I was doing the thing that all coaches do. Like, you follow the formula, you tell people to follow the 5 steps, whatever the 5 steps are. And so I learned pretty early on that, something else was happening because I was trying all these different follow these steps. And so I started really trying to figure out like, what is really happening with this person? Like, what is it that's keeping them stuck? And I started to realize that we all have something. We either have uh, trauma that we've experienced, trauma that we've witnessed, generational trauma that's been inherited.
Mm.
However you want to slice it, we are walking wounded soldiers on this planet. And it really is like having like PTSD as an adult.
Mm.
And honestly, like I started to, I mean, just a little bit. I'll kind of disclose some things about myself that, and I'm
Sure.
totally,
Anything you're
uh,
comfortable with.
yeah, because I don't think you can tell the story of healing until you really understand what your wounding is, and you go through some form of you have to transform it, but in order to transform it, you have to first go unearth it. You have to reflect on, you know, what is it that's happening to me in this moment, right? Like, you have an interaction and you feel triggered.
Mm.
I don't and you seem pretty cool and laid back, but I have a feeling like, that there are even things that like you're in an interaction and suddenly you feel like, something's happening here. Either I don't feel safe or I feel angry, and all these kind of, and much earlier in my life, I feel like that was happening more to me. Like, I was being dragged along by all of these different emotions, and I didn't understand why until I started to learn about trauma and its impact, how it lives deeply in our cell memory outside of our conscious awareness, right? Like, that's the thing about it. It hides in the memory of our cells, and it just waits for the right opportunity. Do you remember that movie, The Perfect Storm?
Oh,
It was about people, fisher. It was a fishing boat, and it was the right intersection of all the events that could have happened that created the perfect storm, which wound up taking their life on this boat because they were so overwhelmed by these waves in the ocean. It was just such an incredible storm. Um, And it's the same thing with us, we're walking around or we're out on our fishing boat and we think it's like a nice, we're on the still waters and everything's cool. And then all of a sudden, there we are in the midst of a perfect storm. And I started to realize that instead of like me being, I wasn't in the driver's seat, I was being dragged along the story. And, it created like painful experiences, interaction with family members, colleagues, like, it was kind of, and in the beginning, because I wasn't so self-aware. I'm like, oh, these people are all out to get me, right? Like that's
Mm,
we kind of we have to first start with that they're out to get me. It's not me, it's them,
yeah. They're out to
until
sabotage the situation.
right, exactly. And so it really is a journey of like it's like an archaeological dig. I have to go and dig into this, this land of discovery, which is me, right? I have to go deep inside and really dig and figure out like what's happening. Why am I being? What is it about these circumstances that trigger me? And the other thing too is that about trauma is that you don't even recognize how much it really does sabotage. He really does sabotage your life until you begin to really start to heal it.
So my big question is, what do we do about it? And I have certain hippie friends, and their quick answer would be plant medicine. Go take ayahuasca, and not a lot of people are gonna go do some plant medicine. Let's get super like simple here. What do we do about it? So we all have this trauma, the saboteur. For me, you mentioned how calm I am. I'm a freezer. I'll be the first one to admit.
Mhm.
My first instinct always isn't like anger or to jump to it. I
Mhm.
freeze, and it takes me a second to
Mm.
process it. I don't think that's a bad thing,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
when the tornado's coming, I'm like frozen. So
Right.
we all go through this in one way or another.
Right.
How do we
Right.
process it? And how,
It's that fright flight, right? In
mm,
fright, we're like the deer in the headlights and we're like, oh my God,
yeah,
what do I do? And meanwhile, the wave's coming at you and you're about to be drowned,
yeah, I'm
you
like,
know, and
ah.
yeah, exactly. And in the fight mode, you like, you launch an assault, equally well, what do we do about it?
Yeah,
Um the first thing is like really to recognize it.
mm,
You have to be able to first like see what's happening to you in that moment. Like when you first recognized, hey, I'm freezing, what did you do about it?
mm,
And then what do you do? Um, I really work with people holistically, and
mm,
I'm not a therapist, so I do not like I don't advocate the use of drugs. I mean, that's a personal decision. In fact, a lot of the research on things like psilocybin, uh, even some heavier drugs like LSDs, a lot of the research shows that it can be quite beneficial in certain cases. And again, like that is you should consult a professional who is trained and licensed and can take you through that process. I don't do anything like that. um, I do have a lot of practices that I use that are like my ways in, right?
mm.
So
Talk about those.
meditation,
Mm,
yeah. Meditation is an excellent vehicle. And I'm not a scientist. I do, and I don't understand how meditation works, but I can tell you from experience that it does have a profound effect on your physiology and your neurology. Um, and I know that in our culture, the idea of just sitting in stillness can be very difficult. And when people say like, "Oh, I tried meditation, it didn't work," I'm like, "Well, what did you try? Like
mhm.
how long did you?" And what happens is people try to like sit for like an hour straight, and then after 5 minutes, they're like, "Oh, this I can't do this. This is just too hard." Um, I say always to my clients, keep it simple.
Mm.
Just sit in a chair. Don't try to, curl your legs into a pretzel. You don't have to do that. Just sit in a chair and just first, like with your eyes closed, feel the soles of your feet making contact with the floor, right? So we just start like with that simple, let's just feel the soles of our feet on the floor. We put our hands, just rest them right on your lap. Like just don't, don't strive, don't push, don't try and make anything happen. And then, when they're ready, I just say, if you're ready and you feel like you want to, just let your eyes close. Just let them gently close and feel your body, feel where there's tension, feel where there's, there might be ease in your body. Feel the ease. Feel how, just becoming aware, just going through a simple exercise of like the feeling your feet on the ground and just, starting to notice your breath. Is it moving in and out slowly or is it rapid? Like some people you can hear them breathing while they're trying to catch their breath. And just like that awareness, right? So meditation is always, well, I should say, it took me 20 years to figure out how to really meditate,
Mm.
because I started out very much, I think, like most people do, like, oh, this is too hard. I can't sit here for this long. And all the noise in my head. And, after 20 years, I started to notice that there was a lot more quiet in my head that,
Mm.
but it's one of those practices that starts to, you don't notice it at first, right? And it's hard to really, but there's been a lot of research that shows it has an impact on like blood pressure and, just general feeling of well-being, right? So that's one tool. I try to find the tools that work with the client, right? So I have Lego blocks that I keep around because sometimes people are very tactile,
Oh.
and while they're trying to think or or work through like a traumatic experience, I ask them to start to build, what it feels like with the Lego blocks, right? So if someone is very tactile, I will use that. I've used like all kinds of drawing instruments, clay, so those are like the tactile people, right? They have to be touching something. They have to be doing something with their hands. And so I really, I don't have a formula. I don't have a formula. I can't tell you that if you follow steps, XYZ that you're going to have. Like I don't, but
It's never
I
guaranteed either. Like it's what works for
no.
one person might not work for the next.
Well, there's something else, Ben, that I've learned in my journey is
Sure.
that so I mean, I have a pretty diverse background. I have a doctorate in acupuncture and oriental medicine. I practiced physical medicine with people for close to 20 years. I also have an MBA from the Wharton Business School, and if that isn't like the extremes, and
Yeah.
so I have worked in some pretty heavy duty corporate environments. Um, People are people. But here's the one thing that I've taken away about the journey and the process. Like, I never know when I'm working with someone, I never know if I'm the person who's planting the first seed of understanding, or if I'm the person that after they've gone through a journey with many people who've planted seeds and things have begun to germinate, whether now I'm going to help this person experience like the flourishing of that seed, right? And I think as a coach, like that was one of the things I had to really accept early on in the process, that I have to show up. I have to, really listen and try to find ways to help them really work through uh, I call them peccadillos, and I didn't make that up. I think it was Robin Williams, who said
Yeah.
that we all show up with our set of peccadillos, which is like our crap, right?
Yeah.
The stuff, all the whether it's trauma, whether it's bad experience, whatever it is, we show up and we carry it around. And, I look at myself as the person that helps you start to unpack it and put it down. Just put it to rest. But the way that I do that is really like through understanding what that person is like. Like, who is that person? What do they need? Are they more sensory? Are they tactile? Are they someone who just wants you to explain it and then and so there's no one size fits all.
Mm.
And yeah.
That's
But
the
yeah,
beauty.
you don't know if you're planting the seed or if you're reaping the harvest with that client. But you just have to trust that if you are, like everything for me comes from like a very heart-centered approach. If you're giving them truly from your heart what they need, then it will germinate.
I literally got goosebumps when you're talking about, planting seed versus watering it, because I'm remembering I've spoken about 5 or 6 times. I've spoken to college students, and
Mm,
I was a lost dog when I was in college. So it's easy for me to assume that they need me to plant a seed. But when I
mm,
speak to these young adults, a lot of them, and literally all of them, but people are at different journeys in their education, they're like really brilliant. And I'm like, am I planting seeds? Are they planting seeds in me right now? Like, a lot of these people already are farther along than I was at that year. So you don't really know. But it sounds like if you
right.
show up authentically, willing to serve, the
Exactly.
answers will kind of
Exactly.
come to you in the process.
Right. And I no longer feel the need that I have to have all the answers.
Mm,
I mean, I feel like so many coaching programs like set you up for like you're kind of like the shepherd, and
yeah.
and I'm okay with not having the answers and allowing the exploration to and first of all, my answers don't work for someone else, right? So for me, it's how do I create the space that allows them to really it's already inside of them.
Mm,
Everyone has their answers inside of them, and you just really have to you have to get out of the way. As the coach, you get out of the way so that they can get to it themselves. It's already there. I look at my role more as, I'm a little bit um I'm not religious, but it's like a little bit you're the priest,
mhm,
a little bit you're the, sometimes it requires someone might need a little bit of like parental encouragement, like just that some warm mothering love, right? And just might and so you have to really y- y- well, first you have to they have to trust you and you have to trust them, right? Like trust is so essential in this relationship, and that can't be forced. um there are people that talk to me, and like we don't always vibe.
mm,
We don't always vibe, right? Because like I'm always going to look at it from this person is a whole person, and if someone is not yet ready to kind of embrace that holism,
mm.
they might just want to like, hey, I just want to get that next promotion. I don't want to talk about like all the stuff that I'm carrying around from my childhood.
Yeah. No, I
That
feel it.
do you know what, right? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, and so I'm not the right coach for everyone. I'm not the right coach for everyone. I really enjoy like seeing my clients transform and setting them off on their journey to like where they feel empowered and like they feel whole again.
Mm. So we've talked about treating it holistically and meditation as a tool and kind of the co-creation of that transformation with the client, with anybody you're speaking to. Basically, it doesn't have to be a coach client situation. It's just navigating the world and helping people as we do. I've
Mhm.
got a fun transition that is related here
Okay.
because I know you're a big foodie and you like to
Oh,
travel. And not
yes.
everyone has the, let's say, income to eat at the finest restaurants every single meal or travel every day of their life. But
Yeah.
part of the puzzle, I imagine, is having novel, unique experiences, kind of getting out of our comfort zone. And for you, a lot of that's food and travel, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm definitely a foodie. And I mentioned right now I'm in Italy, and
Yeah.
God, the food here is just so amazing and fresh. I feel it nourishing me,
Yeah.
But food doesn't have to be expensive to be great either. Like
True.
I travel around a lot, and I find that some of the best places are like these, small mom and pop home cooking. And in fact, I love looking for the off the beaten path kind of places that are really more. I was on the west coast of Italy on the seashore, like just kind of hit a bunch of like towns up and down the coast, and there were so many families that were running restaurants like for multiple generations, and grandma's still in the back cooking, and
Yeah.
just amazing. Like there's just like so much love that they put in. It's that I feel like you can always sense when your food is made with that, like there's that extra something, and it's not oregano, but it's like this just sense of love and
Yeah.
connection, and um yeah. So I definitely love food. I'm not a big cook.
Mm-hmm.
I do cook from time to time, and I used to have dinner parties at my home, and my brother-in-law, like I one time made this meal with like ossobuco. It's not vegetarian. It's, we're talking, the bone marrow, uh, the marrow in the bones, and they made like this, and he still talks about it. He's like, I just wish you would just make that meal again. It was just amazing. Um, so I get inspired, but I do prefer the eating more than the
The
cooking
cooking.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and I kind of jokingly started this podcast with, do you want to go to the deep dive or do you want to go lighthearted? And I don't even know if I've told you this. I know I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet, but I was just in Italy and Greece for a little over two
Oh,
weeks
nice.
last month. Now, this will come out like 2 months after it happened, but I was literally just in Italy. And I wanted to bring
Oh,
that up to you because we had a round trip. We started in
uh-huh.
Venice, my girlfriend and I, Jen. We started in Venice.
Hmm.
Then we went down to Athens, Greece. Then we went to
Wow.
Rome. We didn't go quite as south as where I believe you're from, but we went to
Mhm.
Rome. Then we went to Florence. Then we went back to Venice. And in my experience, and this isn't health advice, but I don't do great with lactose. I don't do great with the cheeses and the milks here in America, like stomach ache, bad stools, that kind of thing. And I don't do fantastic. I don't have celiac or anything, but I don't do
Hmm.
fantastic with gluten either. Like it
Hmm.
makes me feel foggy, makes me feel bloated. Like
Yeah.
I never feel full. And
Hmm.
I'm in Italy and I'm in Greece, but let's just focus on Italy for the
Yeah.
moment. None of the breads and none of the cheeses made me feel that way.
Exactly.
It was it
Exactly.
was a crazy
It's
experience.
it's really nuts because I everyone I know has that experience. In fact, my boyfriend does have celiac,
Oh wow.
but he can have bread here.
Huh.
He can have bread. He's gluten intolerant in the States, man. It's terrible. But here, he can have certain pastas, and I don't understand it, which is like, I feel like we don't really know what's in our food.
No.
And Yeah.
We know what's
And
on the label.
yeah, and I don't trust labels anymore because
Organic.
yeah, because they can use those terms within certain parameters. Like someone once told me that, real fruit juice only really contained like something like 10% real juice in it. And everything else was just garbage. But they can say real fruit juice, they can say natural. Natural is not organic. It's another term that only has to have like a certain amount of really good stuff in it. I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Yeah.
It's
So.
one thing we learned about in Florence was, we went out into the fields, the Chianti region, and
Hmm.
like a Chianti classical wine, all the water comes from Mother Earth. They don't water it. There's specific regulations. All the grapes
Yeah,
need to be local to the region.
that's
French
right.
grapes are fantastic. We're not going to use them. It's all local to the region. And we just don't have those kind of regulations in place in the States.
No, they're quite rigorous. And in fact, I have a cousin here that works for one of the inspection houses that tests all produce that come into any of the supermarkets in the city. And he said they literally like if they do such an extensive level of testing for pesticides, hormones, like everything that you're not, and if they find anything, they turn it away. They don't allow it. They don't allow it in. Like they're much more rigorous, and they have like they don't get everything right, but taking care of like the food and making sure people are protected at that level, they do a pretty good job, and you can experience it just by the fact that you can come here, you can eat, all the cheese you want and not have like belly cramping, right?
I had so much cheese and meats and bruschetta and felt good.
Hmm. Yeah, it's delicious. It's
Other
very
than
delicious.
other than going to Italy or going to Greece, which is another conversation, freaking loved Greece, but other
Hmm.
than traveling to these like which I totally recommend, what do you recommend someone do to ensure like they feel good? Like part of traveling is the food and the sense of wonder. Let's say I'm not going to travel. Any suggestions for people just to take that experience and apply it to their daily life?
Well, yeah, I mean, so we can do simple things, right? We can eat, we can do our best to eat as clean as possible. Okay, so or good organic foods, eating meals at a regular time each day, making sure that you have enough sleep. The rest is so valuable in our physiology and our thought process. Um, you got to start good self care practices. Eating right, sleeping right, movement is important. Take a walk. Take a walk, throw your iPad in, your earbuds, and listen to some beautiful music in a park.
Mm,
That can be like that pause. Like you have to give yourself those breaks. And so yeah,
yeah.
I haven't done this yet, and I'm going to pick up a pair
Ooh,
of VR goggles because I
okay.
understand you can have like these like virtual travel experiences, and I bet because like the brain doesn't really know the difference between real and virtual.
Yeah.
Like have you ever been? I actually went to one of these virtual reality places, and I was standing on the floor, but in the VR goggles, I'm seeing myself like 50 floors in the air on a plank between two buildings. And I swear to God, that felt as real as anything I've ever experienced in my life,
Yeah.
you know? So I could imagine that once this technology gets even better, you can take a virtual vacation on a beach and have it feel so real. And I bet that's really good for your neurology as well.
I'm actually scared to death of it.
It is a little scary, right?
I'm nervous of where we're going. But again, when I was
Yeah.
traveling, that was one of the things that was in the back of my head.
Hmm.
Everybody was taking pictures. And aside from like taking a selfie and posting it to try to like impress my friends and family, which I didn't feel the
Hmm.
need to do quite as much, all these photos have been taken before. So I was like, Ben, there's no need to be on my camera on day. I can do a virtual reality glasses and just experience it again at home. Or I can look at photos on Google, and it actually
Yeah.
allowed me to be more present, knowing
Hmm.
that the moment didn't have to pass. It actually allowed me to be more present. But I'm really,
Right.
really afraid that people just never leave their rooms because the
Right.
world will be at their fingertips.
Yeah, that I mean, that's a legitimate concern. We're seeing that today with all of like, the loneliness and like people are lonelier today. We're so connected, right?
Yeah.
But yet they're lonelier than they've ever been. And that's a real risk. So you have to like also put it down. You have to like turn it off, put it down, and go out and like meet real people and shake some hands or give a hug. Like
Yeah.
that human touch is still required, you
Talk
know.
talk more about that because I know you're a huge advocate for like creating these safe, supportive environments. Talk a little bit more about how we can do that and get out of the house and build those environments for ourselves and others.
Well, I mean, I always make an effort to be part of communities. Like even here in Italy, I joined a women's group, and they're quite active. Like they have hikes, they have reading clubs, they have like i- i- you you have to find like places where you know there are people who resonate with your values, and provide like opportunities to go out and meet people. And but it really requires you to again lean into your discomfort, right?
Mm,
Especially introverts. Introverts tend to like want solitary confinement. They like being at home alone, right?
yeah,
And
I love that.
so yeah, yeah, I mean, I do too, but I also have like the need to be out. I feel like I even at times when I'd rather stay home, I'll force myself to go just so that I don't, because I'm a creature of habit.
Mm,
So after a while, if I just kind of get used to my routine, and so I'm constantly trying to like disrupt that routine
I like
so
that.
that I don't get so attached to it always being that way. And that's like the difference. I feel like if you're constantly doing that, you maintain much growth versus a fixed mindset. And as we age, right, it's easier to fall into a fixed mindset. So you really have to find ways to disrupt and keep it fresh and try new things. I in the early 2000s, I went skydiving just because I'd never done it, and I thought, I've got to keep pushing the envelope so that I don't get into such a routine or a rut
Yeah.
that I get lost there or stuck there.
I usually don't talk about myself this much, Gina, but I'm like fresh out of vacation. I'm like, I need to share. But it was
Uh-huh.
hilarious because I'm a creature of habit. I have a very strict morning routine. I won't go every little aspect, but it has meditation and affirmations and
Mhm.
writing and gratitude and water and exercise. And I take way more like nootropic medicine than anyone needs. I have all these supplements and this and that. And I was on vacation and I didn't want to deal with issues. So I didn't bring all my pills and all my
Mhm.
supplements. And I was really busy. So I didn't do my morning routine.
Mhm.
And everything was fine.
Yeah.
Nothing exploded. Like
You mean the world didn't end?
I didn't need the routine. Now, granted, the
Yeah.
routine has built strong inner muscles for me. Like the routine
Yes.
helps me, but I didn't need the routine. And the
Right.
anxiety of checking the box of doing the routine, it actually didn't serve me. Choosing
Right.
not to do this rigorous morning routine was beneficial.
And you know that you can return to it once you go home.
Exactly.
Like we need to not be so hard on ourselves. We need to like not have like so many like stringent rules. It's like I'm going to step out of my routine for a bit and it'll still be there and then I'll walk back into it.
Mm,
It's having that I don't want to use the word resiliency because I feel like it's overused. I feel like we're using it too much. But
yeah.
it's just having a sense of ease and just saying it's okay. I didn't do the routine today, but I feel good and I'm having a great time and I'm eating this great food and I'm seeing these great places.
Yeah.
So just enjoy it.
What I heard from what you were sharing about getting out of your comfort zone and kind of my experiences, it's still a deliberate choice. So
Yeah.
it's not just motion with the ocean wherever the wind takes me. It's making a deliberate
Right.
choice that I'm going to walk away from this knowing that I can come right back.
Right. It'll be there. And you'll come back to it because it makes sense in your everyday world. It makes sense, to do that. I mean, I find routines very comforting. It's like freedom in a box.
Mhm.
That's how I like to think about it. It's like my freedom in a box. Like that's what allows like my spirit to feel rejuvenated and refreshed so that I can show up. But when I'm on vacation, I think there are a lot of other things feeding your spirit and rejuvenating you. You know,
What in a box? Would you say? Healing in a box? What did you just say?
freedom. I
Freedom
say
in a
freedom in a
box.
box.
I was trying
Yeah.
to memorize it and I totally blanked out. Like trying. This is why there's a rewind button. Freedom in a box.
Yeah.
There's one more topic I wanted to talk to you about today because I know you're a huge advocate for telling stories, hearing stories, healing through storytelling.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Riff on that a little bit. Storytelling's healing.
So it really is, and I want to share. I don't know, like I want to share this with you because I wrote
Okay.
this little book. This
Yeah.
is
Leo's
so
Adventures. For
it's
anyone
Leo's
listening to the
Adventures.
audio, describe what you have there.
Yeah, it's this small little children's book. It's Leo's Adventures: The Quest for Making Friends. And actually, this book grew out of like my own exploration process. So, I'm an immigrant to the United States and had some pretty traumatic early experiences when I was like trying to acclimate to American culture, making friends. But the thing about like trauma, right? It really depends how we tell the story. So for a long time, the story I had told myself was that, oh, it was poor me. I was a victim. Like, people were mean to me. People weren't nice. They made fun of me. They did all kinds of like, what kids do when you're 6 years old and you don't speak the language and you don't look like everyone else and so on and so forth. And so I started to really explore like through diary, started a diary about these stories. And then one day I thought, well, what if I didn't tell the story the way that it was? But what if I started to reframe the story through, rather than victim, but what if I were like the superhero
Yeah.
in the story? And through like being different than everyone else, I was able to somehow, and so I started telling the story differently. And um, what was more like I've been playing around with like uh taking other people through this journey. Like I don't have it all figured out because like this is all it all kind of came together, but through like retelling the story through a different lens, I actually like once the book was published, I'm like, I didn't feel so activated anymore
Huh.
by so I feel like we can tell the story, and then if we have people to witness our story, and this was the experience that I had, was that I told the story to enough people, and then when they witnessed what I was saying, they helped me to reframe it so that instead of like being the victim, I become the victor. And so I've actually been playing around with the idea of starting a pilot group, a small group, maybe 8 to 10 people. I've tried it with a few people, and it seems like they've gotten some really good results too, able to heal. I had one person who, was able to heal the fear of public speaking because they'd gone through this traumatic event of being ridiculed. I mean, again, grade school, like people are we're the meanest at our youngest.
Oh yeah.
And had
We're
this really
animals.
really seriously, like, and we're never more in touch with our animal instincts than when we're kids, right? Because when we're grown-ups, then we learn decorum and
Yeah.
politeness and all this stuff, right? Like they beat the animal out of us. Um, and so, like, one of the people that went through this, process, like, he had like a real fear of public speaking. Now he's actually speaking everywhere. Like you can't, like he's so confident and comfortable. But because like we helped him rewrite the story, and then like the great thing about it is like now like we have this memorialization of the
Oh,
journey,
yeah.
right? And honestly, like I ordered up a bunch of these, and they're going to be stocking stuffers. I'm giving it to like all my family and friends, just as
Cool.
and it's like it makes a great gift. And but this is where, like, we were talking earlier about technology,
Yeah.
because I actually had this idea, like this is an idea that's been brewing like for a couple of years. But the place where I got stuck was in like create like the images. And honestly, this whole book has been illustrated by AI.
Oh, cool.
All the images were generated. So it's like it was just such a fun process. I didn't realize how easy it was.
Yeah.
And like it's like so incredibly easy to get something published. And like the AI did the images, and we know our friends at Amazon are just happy to. And in fact, it's funny. I was looking at my bank account, and I saw like these deposits from Amazon, like, a couple of bucks. We're not talking about, I'm like, what is this? Why am I getting deposits from Amazon? This is so weird. And I had forgotten that I put the book up, I had put it out there. And so I'm like, oh, that must be the book. Um, there's something, I don't know, like there's just something so incredible about going through a journey where y- you tell yourself a story in a certain way, and then you realize that you're only seeing one piece of it.
Right.
It's like, like that old image of if you have like 100 blind men and they're standing next to an elephant, that they'll each describe it very differently.
Huh.
And so I kind of feel like it's the same way with our stories. We tell it from one perspective, from one place that we're standing, and that doesn't negate that it felt like it felt bad at the time. And, it is like you experienced it in that way. Uh, but if we can reframe, and rewrite it in a way that like really helps you transform it, it's I can honestly tell you that writing this book did something to my neurology, where I felt like I was able to let go of past hurts and past experiences. So, but yeah, it's I think stories are really important, and I think having people witness our stories is also important.
Now, what about the person who's like, I don't know if I just don't think I'm that interesting. I don't know if I have a story to tell.
Oh my God, that is like we all have a story to tell. It doesn't matter. Everyone has, no matter what your job is, no matter what you have, we are so unique, down just even down to our environments that we live in. Everyone has a story, like, and that is probably the one thing I feel that I can help people unearth is realizing that they are far more powerful and far more interesting than we I think it's because I don't know about you, but the way I was raised, everything was about like, don't show off too much, don't don't appear to be bragging, don't, and it's like all those don'ts, like they really help suppress what really is awesome. And who was it? Was it Eleanor Roosevelt said that our deepest fear isn't that we're not good enough. It's not that, but it's that we are powerful beyond even our imagination, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
That's really our big, that that if we were to really unearth how powerful and magnificent we are, then I feel like we'd be in a different world.
It's powerful. And I feel like I'm in an echo chamber sometimes because a lot of people in my region or my friend group were similar, but I'm in upstate New York. When
Mhm.
I go to Orlando, Florida, it's a different place. And when I go to Austin, Texas, it's a different place. And then when I go to New Orleans for the jazz festival, completely different world. And
Mm.
Italy was total culture shock. Greece was total culture shock. I might be living in Greece and think, well, this is just how we do things. But to someone who's not in Greece, it's the most fascinating thing in the world.
Right, right. Because the fish doesn't know it's in the water.
Might drop the mic there. The fish doesn't know it's in the water.
Right? And one thing that I say to my clients is, and I kind of like talk about that a little bit. I'm like, well, you go on vacation and you act in this way, and then you show up at work and you act that way, and you go home. And when somebody says, hey, they can't transform something about their personality because they're like they think they're fixed and that's all there is. I'm like, well, actually, no, because you probably show up in your church differently than you show up in your work, differently than you show up with your family. You're already, I say, think about the idea that you are trying on an outfit. You're trying on a costume to play a role. So now if you want an aspect of your personality that you need to really show up, in the corporate world they call this executive presence, but which really means like they want you to show up in a way that's more aligned with what they expect, right? So
Executive
if
like.
executive like, right?
Yeah.
And so, put on your executive outfit, go watch some movies of people who like embody executive roles, right? And see how they show up. And then you try on that outfit and show up at work with that. It's all really perspective, right? Whether you believe that you're the gazelle being chased by the lion, or whether you believe you're the lion, it really just depends what story you're telling yourself, you know. And so if you and really in most corporate environments, you got to show up more like the lion than the gazelle.
Oh, I
But
want
every
to.
but every environment has their appropriate way of being, right? Like you don't show up like the Ben that I know here in this podcast is probably different than the Ben that's on vacation with his girlfriend.
Yeah, the Ben on vacation with his girlfriend was eating a lot of food.
Yeah, and that's how I like to roll too, Ben.
I want to do another 60 minutes to 10 hours with you, but for the listener, and in a second, I want to talk about that pilot group, but quickly, like social media, email, what's the easiest way to connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest way is email. It's Gina at MACH4Ventures.com. And I am on LinkedIn and Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's at Mach4 Ventures. I think on Instagram I'm at Mach4 Ventures underbar coach.
Okay.
Uh,
The beauty
and
is we'll find it, we'll talk to you and make sure
yeah,
that's in the show note description.
yeah, exactly. I'm pretty easy to track down, and I love hearing from people. So um,
And what about this pilot program? Because that sounded interesting.
yeah,
And I have
well.
like a couple billion listeners, so someone's going to want to join.
Well, I've honestly I've only tried this with 3 people so far, so it's really young and fresh.
Cool.
And so I'm looking for like a really small group of you know, I would say 8 to 10 is about right. Maybe one group of 8 to 10, or maybe like 2 groups where there's a European option
Oh,
and an American option. But really, I want to keep it small because first I want to test this theory of, can we help people to go through a transformation process by unearthing and, like, you know, feeling witness to what their wounding was, and through that witnessing transform their story into one where, they emerge the superhero of the journey. I know, like, I don't know if you ever heard of Joseph Campbell, but in the hero's journey, I mean, I feel like if we can connect to that place where we connect with our inner hero, then it really helps to, I mean, it transcends everywhere, because the way you're going to show up in your home, the way you're going to show up in your work, the way that you show up in your relationships, it's just going to be changed. Because if you can shift an idea about yourself, like, everything is in here, right? This is where things need to shift. Our ideas of who we are, who we think we are, who we think we can be, what our limits are. We've all created those stories. And if we can find ways to really break free and tell that story, have it witnessed, and then walk away with, and you don't have to publish it. Like, I went through the whole thing just because I wanted to see, like, how easy or hard it was.
Sure.
But you can choose to, like, turn it into a children's book that then becomes like a piece of legacy. You will forever be an author
Yeah.
on the platform. And it's just I can't even describe. It wasn't so much. It was just how I felt different, and just feeling more at ease. And like, the more, because I feel like the more you can accept yourself and who you are, the easier it's going to be to connect with other people and really build that community. And at the end of the day, like, we all still need that. We need to build communities that support us, that nurture us, that, like, lift us up. And you know, that's it. So small, would love to, hear from some folks who might be interested in joining the pilot. It's going to run for about, it's like, we meet monthly for about 10 months. It winds up running in a full calendar year, but and so, if again, I don't have a lot of things figured out. So I'm just, I'm just thinking about it, but I feel like it could be really helpful.
You kind of
Really
want them to
helpful.
get in the mud and get dirty with it with you.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something fun about being
Exactly.
part of a pilot group because there's this authenticity that occurs when you're not going through this rigid structure system that 5,000 people have done prior to you. I think it's a cool thing.
Right. Right. I like that. I
Yeah.
I like being in the creative process. And yeah, I would just love to draw some folks in who are into doing it, and see what the results are.
And that's just like all the things we just talked about with email, social, LinkedIn, just reach out there.
They can just reach out to me on my email.
Okay, cool.
Just send a note, just saying, they can mention that they heard about it on your show, and then I'll, talk to them. I mean, again, I don't have it all figured out. It's coming together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is sweet. I'm happy you talked about it here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I feel like you get it, like, it's that very, like, heart-centered approach.
I do my
And
best.
yeah,
Well, one
no,
thing we didn't
it
mention, which is
shines.
totally true, is if you have a published book and you want to be a speaker, you want to get on podcasts, you want to do events, you want to do workshops, it sure doesn't hurt to be an author.
Yeah. Oh,
Super
yeah,
side
right?
note, but I'm not an author. Everyone's like giving me a hard time about it. Even
Uh-huh.
my girlfriend, I'm like, babe, I have like hundreds. By now, I have thousands of hours of high quality content. She's like, yeah, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a book. Like, yeah, but
Right.
I have way more than a book. Yeah, but people don't care. They want you
Right.
to be a published author.
Right. Right. Yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt. It
It doesn't
definitely
hurt.
doesn't hurt, for sure.
Well, we'll do this again. I know we were looking forward to this for like months on end, and I'm happy we
I
made it happen.
know.
And
I know. Me
I,
too. I'm
I
so
hope we
happy
can.
to be here.
Next time I'm around Italy, I don't know why I didn't call you. I apologize. Next time I'm around,
Seriously, what were you thinking?
I didn't realize I could just take a train and go zoop up and down real
Yeah.
easily. So,
Venice is an hour and a half on the train from me.
well, let's
Yeah.
talk soon. And I hope the
All
listener
right.
does reach out and start a conversation because, like, you joked beforehand, like you're Italian, you love conversations. If someone
Mhm.
messages you, you're not going to shoo them away. You probably want to chat.
Oh gosh, no. I'll be like, hey, let's have some virtual tea and
Or
or wine. I should have some
cappuccino.
virtual wine.
Cappuccino. The one thing that I'm
Caffeine.
now obsessed with is ginseng cappuccinos or cafe ginseng, my
Yes.
favorite. Oh my God.
Yes. I make it. I buy it and I make it myself.
That's the
It's
one.
very
That's
yummy.
mm. All right, let's let's talk more
Yeah.
about this soon.
Okay, Ben. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing here. It's really fantastic.
Thank you, Gina.